Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Elevate Life YouTube channel. I am your host, Jerla Prevalon. If you are new and you have not followed us, and this is your first time for visiting my YouTube channel, welcome. I'm so glad you are here and you have decided to join the conversation. On this show, we focus on women, the stories of women, their joys, their trauma, their pain and suffering. And we look at how they have triumphed over and over again with Jesus and therapy in mind as their guide throughout the healing journey. We are continuing with this series, you guys. If you have not been watching, I suggest to go back to the other episodes because we are talking about starting over again. Basically, after you've experienced loss, trauma, pain, and suffering, how do you start over again? How do you allow yourself to triumph, to get up and get back up again? And we have had guests who has blown us away. There's been some tears, there's been some laughter, there's been a little bit of everything in between. Today we have a very special guest. Yes, another special guest. But this one, y'all, she's my girl. She is my sister in love, Reverend Cherisna Jean-Marie, and she will share with you guys. I just want you to get ready, get your notebooks, get yourselves together, get a blanket somewhere because she will just blow your mind. Okay, so stay tuned to hear her story, to hear how she has dealt with joy, with pain, with suffering, and how she has triumphed over all of that and what she is doing. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Okay, so as promised, this is my sister in love. I am here with her, Cherisna Jean-Marie, Reverend Cherisna Jean-Marie. So get it right. She and I have known each other before I met her brother. So we were in youth group together back in New Jeru. She was just I'm older, so she's younger. So I was in,
August babies.
yeah, we're August babies. And she's been a great supporter for me throughout the years in ministry and even be able to call out my calling even before I was able to step into it. I don't know if you remember that when I was in Texas, how you would just name things. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to step into this calling that God has called me to. And she's always been a strong voice in my life. And I've just watched her over the years grow and flourish. I can tell you so many wonderful things. She is a truth teller. Sometimes we may not want to hear truth tellers speak, but you know what? We find ourselves gravitating towards those truth tellers in time of need when we're like, we just need the truth. And she's that type of person that can tell you the truth, and really speak life into you. And I love her for that. I love her for the ministries that has been birthed out of her, the things that she has been able to do. I can sit here and just hype her up because that's what we do for one another. you know Thriving and strong women know how to hype each other up because we know how important it is to be able to do that for one another. And that's what I do for her and she does for me. So today you get to hear her and see her and hear of what's been birthed out of her. But I want her to tell you all a little bit about herself from her mouth. So Reverend Cherisna, please tell us, who are you? What is it that you want us, the world, to know about you?
Well, as always, I am grateful for you. Zirla is my person. She is conversation partner. She is comforter. All those things she named about me, speaking into, we've been speaking into each other's lives for many years. She is my safe place. She's one of the first people, if not the first person, I often call when something big is happening. And so I am grateful for you and your ministry to me and to the world. And I'm always honored to come in your platforms and the ways in which you show up in the world to share and to be alongside you. So thank you for this.
Yeah.
I carry many different roles in my life at 45. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an auntie, I'm that auntie. I'm not just
She is that
I'm
auntie.
that auntie. My nephews and niece speak life into me in ways that um, I just didn't know I needed. And I'm grateful for my siblings. I have 8 siblings, five sisters, and 3 brothers. And I'm just always been grateful that they share their children with me. And we raise the children as village. And so whenever my niece and nephews pick up the phone and call me, I'm always honored. So I'm that auntie. I pause and give a little more description because that is who I am. I love
That's
to be
right.
an aunt. And I'm also a minister. God has called me to be an officer of the church. And I have served in many different ways. I've served as pastor. I've pastored churches before. I serve as chaplain. I've chaplained in hospitals and also college and universities. I've served as an activist, an organizer, a gatherer of people, a convener, facilitator, a truth teller. I am an anti-racist activist, a womanist practitioner, but at the heart of preacher, public speaker, but at the heart of who I am a child of God. I am an heir
That's
of
right.
salvation. I am an heir of the kingdom and kingdom of God. And so just grateful for the ways in which I continue to evolve and walk in purpose.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love all that you have shared about your titles and the hats that you wear. Um, you shared something about your role as an auntie. You're that auntie. So I'm going to tell a personal story. I remembered growing up, you've always said, I want 10 boys when I grow up. So tell me a little bit about your journey in wanting 10 boys to now being that auntie. You're
Mm,
an auntie. So tell me about
yeah.
that.
I vaguely remember 10 boys wanting to be a mom. Vaguely remember that. I think coming from a big family and being the youngest of a big family, family has always just been big. And
Yes.
so it is not odd for me to aim for 10 boys,
Hmm.
having 9 nephews. So
That's
almost,
close.
right? Almost, right? Um, yeah, I think that the journey I think I've always kind of believed that sometimes one day I will be wife, mother, because that was what I saw and what I was taught and socialized to believe and understand as a woman that, you grow up and in my household, you go to school,
Yep.
and then at some point, marriage and children would come.
Yeah.
And so I never really put too much emphasis around that because, again, what I saw growing up and what I was taught and believed and socialized, that it just would come.
Right.
And when it did not come at the time that I thought it would be, I would come when 30 start hitting and then 35.
Mm,
And it's like, hold up.
right.
You start having conversations with yourself and God about what is of this life for me.
That's right.
And I think at one point, at 40 something. I just turned 45. And there's been many times, I've always said I never want to be a mom without a husband. I never wanted to be a single mother. And never felt an urge like other people I know who's single but feel like they are called to be a mother. And they're willing to do it in non-traditional ways. I actually know several people who's done it in non-traditional ways. I've never had that urge or
Right.
that
You've
call
always
or
said that.
desire. I
Yeah.
never wanted to be a single mother. I often tell people my mom and dad came home every night. And I'm a product of a two-parent household who came home every night. And it's a gift. Now that I hear other people's stories, I reckon how
Right.
privileged that is and how much of a gift that is. And wanted to just give that to my children if God would honor me to be a mom. But I think at some point in my 40s, I realized perhaps this is not the journey for me. And so I grieved, but I grieved in various different stages, right? In various different ways.
Right.
Sometimes grief manifested in, tears and lament, and other
Right.
times grief manifested in deep conversation with myself, with God, and with others.
Right.
And I think sometimes grief manifested also in, what do you say, acknowledging what I have as an aunt in the family.
Right.
And then because my world, like my lifestyle, is so different from someone who's settled with children, I don't think that I linger in grief too much because I'm just
Right.
up and going and doing things, if that makes sense. Um, and it's not a conversation I don't think we have enough,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
or create space for Black women, any woman, to really have a true, honest conversation about what they were taught would come, and it never
Yeah.
comes, right?
This
And
is
it
so
never,
good.
yeah.
This is so good because I love what you shared about how women are socialized
Hmm.
to want that, that it becomes a part of the desires or even um the frustration,
Hmm.
that we have to navigate through as we get older and for that dream to not come to fruition,
Right.
right? And what you're saying is that you've grieved it, you've lamented, and you're at a place where that's not your sole purpose, is to
Hmm.
sit in grief and lament over not having the children, the family that you have been socialized to want all your
Hmm.
life.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, you know, Yeah, that's exactly that. I think
Yeah.
grief comes in and out, right? I don't linger in it because my lifestyle, right, does not
Right.
really reflect someone who I can barely take care of the dog that I have. Frankly, but to be honest, I think it comes and goes and flows, right? When you meet someone special
Right.
and you think about what a family looked like during the holidays, I think is the most um, pre- present in terms of grief because that's when it
Right.
hits mostly. Because
Hmm.
home for me, going home for the holidays, and I have many different, homes in terms of family, but your home, your
Hmm.
sanctuary that you've built, is a home that I live in by myself. And who wants to spend the holidays by themselves? So I think that it is the most present during the holidays
Right.
because it hits home that you are alone. And if I want to be with someone, I would need to go to someone else's home.
Right.
And so, you create new traditions. I have a girlfriend, Yolanda. Yolanda lives in
Right.
Portugal. And we kind of shared, she's a prayer partner of mine, confidant as well. And we have shared some of the same experiences and truths,
Yeah.
and been very open and honest with one another. And we decided, well, you know what? So we started traveling during the holidays. We traveled
Yeah.
during the holidays. So creating new traditions and new ways has been my journey in terms of how I've been socialized and what it looks like to be and do something else.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you're giving our audience, women who are navigating that process, um, another way of looking at it, opportunities to have life,
Mm-hmm.
even when the life you thought you were going to have does not look like what you thought it
Right.
was going to look like. That you're saying there's still life,
Yeah, you can still live. You don't have to
you know?
die here. Right? Yeah, you can
Yeah.
still live. Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty in God. That's the beauty in divine intervention, right?
Mhm.
In that you've been socialized by culture and tradition, and I would even suggest religion one
Mhm.
way. And when it doesn't show up, the assumption is God failed you, God
Right.
forgotten you, God, ignored you, or God abandoned you. When in fact, what I've discovered is none of those are true.
Right.
There's a particular socialization, a particular narrative that was given to me that's just like women don't preach. That was also a narrative given to me
Yeah.
by tradition, culture, and religion. And
Right.
that
Right.
divine intervention happened in my life. And so I am I am grateful for the ways divine intervention has interrupted the narratives that was projected on me,
Right.
that was not my truth.
Right.
Mm.
Right. This is so good. And I love what you said earlier in our conversation, that this is a bigger conversation that women need to come together to have together, because my story is different.
Mhm.
I was married at 22, had a shotgun wedding, that's another story for another day.
I was
All right.
there.
She was there. So I've been married for 22 with all since 22 with all the ups and downs, right? That's not my story, but I do believe our stories intersect in a sense that, and I think it's the same conversation, that we were all socialized
Right.
to do life as women, as Black women, to live life a certain way. For me as a married woman, I was socialized to live as a married woman in a certain way. And you try it until you're like, this
This
ain't
ain't
gonna
it.
work. This is not going to work. Like, this married life is the living it this way is not going to
That's
work. And same thing for an unmarried woman, like, for me to sit and lament and cry about this thing and force this thing to happen, when it's not happening, that's not going to work either. So where is life? Where can we as women, as Black women, can find life? Whatever
yeah.
story, whatever life that God, wants you to live, where can you find life? And your life is here.
Life
We
is,
can find life.
and it takes interruption. It
Hmm.
takes asking questions and
Right.
not just receiving what's been given. So it is a disruption of a norm. It is misbehaving and removing yourself outside of a box that you were placed in. So it's messy, it's disruptive.
Right.
It is a kind of interruption that would cause for you, like, finding God beyond what was given to you is messy.
Mm.
It
Ooh.
calls for a kind of conflict, and confusion,
Yes.
that most people would say you're a problem, um,
Girl.
because you're asking questions and you're doing
Yes.
something that, you're doing something different from what you were told to do,
Right.
right? And
Right.
oftentimes women, specifically women, we are pegged a particular way when we don't
Right.
act like the ways we've been socialized to act.
Right.
You
Right.
know, years ago, I wanted to move back to New Jersey, get closer, especially when we were dealing with mom and figuring out where she would live and, raising your mother. And nobody
Mm-hmm.
prepared us to,
Oh yeah.
that's another conversation,
That's another
right? No
conversation.
one prepared us to raise our parents. And I was like, well, most of the family is moving in a particular area. They're closer and centering the care of mom. And I wanted to be a part of that. So I was praying secretly, me and one of my sisters, we were looking at places to live in Jersey that was close. And the Lord interrupted that. And the Lord said, no.
Girl.
The Lord
Yep.
said, if you go back closer to your family, you won't listen to me. You won't do
Mm,
what I've asked you to do.
right. You get
Sometimes
comfortable. Yeah.
you get comfortable, but also family can be a disruption.
Mm-hmm.
My family, we are a strong family. We're a very close family.
Mm-hmm.
We're influential to one another, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
God knew that. God knows how much my siblings have influence over me.
Mm-hmm.
And God
Mm-hmm.
knew if I was close, it would be very hard for me to hear God and to do what
Mm,
God said, because oftentimes my life has been what God tells me to do looks very different
right.
from the ways I was raised, from tradition, from culture.
Right.
So it's a disruption and you get pegged a particular way.
Right.
So it's not easy, right?
Right.
To find life beyond what was given to you. It's not easy to rewrite your story because it's going to cause for you to disrupt and even to reject what's been given
Right.
to you. And oftentimes the people who's close to you, the people you love,
Right.
men and
Right.
women,
Right.
women too, right?
Right.
Will
Because we're all socialized underneath the same sky,
all
right?
socialize under the
We're
same.
drinking the same water.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so good because disruption is biblical. You know,
Woo!
all throughout the Bible, we see a God that disrupts, that
Yes.
interrupts. Um, the Gospels, how Jesus showed up, that was a disruption of how they did things to how he was calling us to live anew.
Mhm.
And so when I see people, um especially in the work that I do in trauma, and people are coming in to talk about spirituality and just that disruption, you know I applaud them, because here's the thing: I believe God works in the disruption. And God, when God is ready to do something in your life, he just disrupts.
That's
He
right.
just changes your course for
All the
living
way. You know,
and
it,
just
it
disrupts you.
it's biblical. Here's the challenge though. How we've read the text, we've been taught to read the text, and how we've preached the those stories, those gospels, right? We saw it from the end of the benefit of disruption. We did
Right.
not hear or see it or interpret the text in the one who's being disrupted. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's hard for us to see a God of disruption because we've been
Yeah.
told so much of a God of peace,
Because
right?
look at the prophets. the
Woo!
prophets. The prophets disrupted,
Yeah,
challenged the status quo, kept calling the people to turn to God, to look anew. Look at the ones who are crying out in the wilderness. Look at the ones who are being victimized, the ones who
that's
are
right.
in pain and suffering. I always have a heart for the one that's crying and saying, I'm hurting.
Mm,
Something's happening,
yes,
because there's a truth and a reality they're sharing that those who are living on the hill cannot share.
that's right.
And for
That's right.
society, the heart of a society, the heart of a great society, is a society that listens to those who are who are crying out, who are
That's right.
calling in the wilderness saying, I'm in pain?
That's right.
What do we do with those who are saying, this is not working for me?
That's right.
There's a question. I have a question. This doesn't work for me. And I believe when we are living as faith-filled people, we have to listen to those that are saying, this is not working. Does God have good news for me? Even me.
Not just listen, we
You
join
know,
in, right? Lament is a spiritual discipline,
it is. It
right?
is.
Lament is a cry out to God. And we don't just listen, at least in our work at the Co-Conspirator Institute.
Oh,
We
we're gonna get
tell,
to that.
yes, we tell folks, our co-conspirators, we don't come to bear witness to those who are crying out. We join in the cry out with them. It is a
That's right.
form of worship, but it is also a form of the human experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
often remember, actually, it was you. I mean, you talk
Mm,
about the ways I've influenced. Oh, we can talk about the ways you have. Your
mm,
fingerprints are all over me.
mm,
When you went, I don't remember where in Africa you were when. I always forget the country, but I tell this story all the time.
mm,
And you said that the women shared with you that they do communal lament because for
mm-hmm.
them, communal lament announces to the community something has happened.
Something's
And I
happened.
think that's what happens when we're not honest about our disappointments, when we don't
Right.
grieve, when we don't cry out publicly,
Mm-hmm.
when we do it privately or we don't do it at all. We don't announce and we don't interrupt the norm. We don't
Mm-hmm.
announce that something has happened. Because
Right.
in the announcements, it's almost like an alarm that's going off. Something has
Right.
happened, right? And so when we're not announcing something has happened, no one is alert,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't make room. We don't make way for, right? I'm thinking about the ambulance, right? Something has
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
happened. So the alarm goes off and we pull aside and we allow the people who has the ability to come and help, right?
Right.
We make
Right.
room for it. Well, we're all going in traffic because no one is allowed. The alarm is not off. Something has
Yeah.
happened, right?
Right.
So
Right.
lament is a spiritual discipline. It announces in community that something has happened
Something's
and we
happened.
get to join in, right?
That's
As
awesome.
community, if we are in community, we get to join in that,
That's right. That's right.
to because communal lament is the beginning. It is a necessity for social change. I
Right.
would even suggest it's a necessity for spiritual change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that, we are able to create spaces
Yes.
that allows us to do this work. I think what's happened with Western Christianity is that we have looked at Christianity as a religion that that creates wealth for people, and that everybody's going to be rich and everybody's going to be healed on this side of heaven, that there's going to be no pain or suffering on this side of heaven. So what tends to happen is that when pain and suffering happens, we get such a punch in the gut, and we can't breathe, we can't deal with it, and the community does not know what to do with our pain and when we're crying, right?
Right.
Because all of a sudden it's like you need to wipe them tears real quick. You need to kind of stuff it in. Don't let people know that you're crying too loudly because it's disrupting our happiness, our
That's
joy. And nobody wants somebody that's coming to church crying in tears and asking for people to lament with them.
That's right. And and sometimes, oftentimes, we keep it to ourselves because the community shame us, right?
Right.
Woe to the single woman who goes into community to say, "I'm
Mm,
single and I have no children."
yeah.
Whoa, because the first thing you say is, "Well, what's wrong with you?" What are you doing?
Right.
Something, you too loud. You
Mm-hmm.
too this. You're too much. You know how many times I've been told I'm too much, I'm not enough, I'm too loud, I'm too problematic, I'm too this, I'm too that. And that's so, in other words, I'm not lovable. And for
Yeah.
so long, I believed that. I
Mm-hmm.
believed I wasn't lovable. That's why I am single, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't function in the way in which community has put me in a box, right?
Wow.
So woe to communities who don't create safe space for people to be honest about their pain, honest
Yeah.
about their disappointments, honest about their whatever they're going through, and
Yeah.
rather than us joining in with them in their humanity, to
Yeah.
ring the alarm for a physical, mental, and even spiritual transformation, we shame them.
Yeah. Yeah. We tell them it's their fault.
It's their
They're
fault.
the only ones dealing with it
Yeah, it's
because
you, not
the
us.
norm for society is for you to be married with children. And if you fall outside of the norm, it's your fault,
Your problem.
right?
Yeah.
And you're shamed. Now, this is a great conversation. Remember, I told you we will break this up into part 2. So
Mhm.
this is part 1.
Okay.
We're about to segue into part 2, okay?